That makes sense.
And so anyway, Ghana at the time threw out a lot of Nigerians because they were aliens, so they said, by this pro-imperialist government.
Yeah.
And then fast forward,
yeah,
what did Nigerians also do to Ghanaians?
Same thing, my brother.
They threw them out of Nigeria.
Yeah. Now that is the problem I still have. You know, why are we doing that? You know,
because we are the other reason I don't think we are Pan-Africanists in office. Because a Pan-African government will not throw out other Africans.
Of course.
And I think if we unite the continent, and that would also help.
Yeah, that's true.
Because then I mean, right now I can come to Kenya without a passport. Right now.
Yeah. True.
And Kenya, you can come to Ghana without a passport.
Yeah.
But try driving to Kenya and see.
You cannot. You
or
cannot.
Try driving to Ghana.
You cannot.
You can fly, okay. When you try to use the road, you pay money at every border.
Exactly. Once they hear your accent,
Ghana, all your money is finished.
It's really sad. It's really sad, man. It's really sad.
Yeah.
But according to you, Kwame, how long do you think do you see us getting to that position of one Africa?
How long is hard to say. You know why? Because whenever people have tried to forecast these things, it has happened sooner than they think.
Okay.
You remember when Marcus Garvey was talking about Africa on the map?
Yeah.
People told him they would never happen even in his lifetime.
Yeah.
But it happened.
Yeah.
And so during Nkrumah's time, it was believed that African unity will be very soon.
Okay.
This is in the 1960s.
Yeah.
1950s, 60s. It's 2024 and we are still not united.
Exactly.
So sometimes it's hard to forecast these things. Okay. Sometimes it happens sooner than you think. Sometimes it happens later than you think.
Oh.
So it will be hard for me. Who knows? Some of you guys will wake up tomorrow, the young Gen Zs, and say, look, forget about what our fathers and grandfathers are saying.
Yeah.
A united Africa now. And then you will all sign the documents. And then we are united.
And that's a good idea.
So,
can I say something on
Yeah, of course.
So, according to what I've been seeing, I think papers really don't work that much with the government. Because our government now is using force. You know, government of Kenya is used to use force. So on paper thing, I don't know how it will work. I have no theory on that. But what can you tell me about maybe waking up one day or maybe next week, and then we decided, you know what, as the Gen Zs, we will sign. You know, we'll collect signatures to unite maybe East Africa. Maybe we start with East Africa. Can you see the government of maybe Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda taking it late?
Not neo-colonial governments.
Not this government.
Neo-colonial governments have no interest in African unity.
Yeah.
I mean, if you take Museveni, for instance, I keep saying this. Museveni says that Nkrumah's idea was not good.
Yeah.
That those parts of Africa that are like brothers and sisters must unite first.
Yeah.
And he's in East Africa. He still hasn't united East Africa.
He still hasn't united. You know?
So those guys are not interested in unity. They are interested in just controlling their patch.
Wow.
And their family making money. That is what these guys are interested in.
Okay. So for Africa to unite first, we need to change the governments.
Well, we are part of the government. So yes, so we will. Well, what do you think?
Yeah,
and there are more people here. More people have joined us, so they will also chip in and
they'll chip in on that. Yeah, for Africa to change, do we still need to change the government, or can we do it with the same government? So I believe someone else can take it from there.
Well, let's hear what others think. Some people think that we must have a federalist. The federalists think that we must give the African people the chance to vote on it. That if we wait for the governments, it will not happen. So the people have to vote and tell the government what to do.
Cool.
So So yeah. Anyway, if you have joined us recently, we're having a conversation around African unification. It's just a conversation, and we are just listening to one another, talking, chip in, say whatever you like about it. It's okay. It's a free space. It's a protected space. It's free speech. Even if you don't believe in African unification at all, you are free to speak and tell us why. As long as you tell us why, so we can challenge you, and that's all we ask.
That's the only way it's gonna work. Black unity, it's nation time, as Africa for Africa at home and abroad. Up, you mighty race, you can conquer what you will. The quote of Marcus Messiah Garvey. This is Brother Siddiqui. I'm just chiming in here, just to build with the
Brother Siddiqui. You do.
Peace, Black. Peace. I'm happy to be on here to speak on the unification of us kidnapped Africans, us continental Africans who wasn't taken off for this land but was colonialized. It's just time for us to find a bond that will bring us back all together. And one of the purposes and objectives should be happening. We keep talking Pan-Africanism, but us kidnapped Africans seem to always be left out of the equation, even though the fact that it all started from us being pulled out of here and depopulating the continent with the knowledge.
Siddiqui, I don't think that is quite right. You have never been left out of the equation. Nkrumah came to the U.S. to study.
Well,
and he worked with you guys in the US. A lot of you came to Ghana, and some of you are still in Ghana, so you were never left out.
No, when I say left out of the equation, was you can take that further back because Marcus Messiah Garvey came to America, with the intentions of meeting Booker T. Washington, who he was highly influenced by. To meet and build with him and trying to duplicate the institutions that he created, which, Booker T. Washington was a kidnapped African, but before Garvey was able to make it to the continent, before Garvey was able to make it to the continent, Booker T. Washington had passed, So Garvey decided to stay. He decided to stay, and he built the UNIA ACL up from when he left Jamaica, and the UNIA, of course, is the biggest organization that has organized organization of us kidnapped Africans, of us diasporan Africans, and us Africans on the continent. There has not been a bigger movement than the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey to this day. He was so influential that they keep him out of the history books. They trying to make sure that they don't allow another movement like our Messiah. I consider Marcus Messiah Garvey our Messiah. That's the only Messiah I have. I don't have any other Messiahs. If we can be able to follow the philosophy and opinions of Marcus Messiah Garvey, we both will be free. But he's
I know you do that. Nkrumah was also a Garveyite.
Yes, he was. That was his influence, and that's why the flag is the color what it is.
Garveyite is part of the Garveyite vision.
Most definitely. No, it's unquestionable about Nkrumah's and that's my name also. Nkrumah's Siddiqui Kamal Nkrumah. That is my given name by a sister that was in the movement. So I truly take Nkrumah's philosophy at heart just as well. Only if they would have listened to him, we would have United States of Africa right now. But due to the fact that Malema had more of an influence. Him and Haile Selassie, they had a different influence, and they went the other way.
It took them too long. I mean, imagine Nyerere saying that it took him 10 years to understand what Nkrumah was saying. 10 years.
Too long.
Too long.
And they blew it in.
Long.
Yeah.
Sometimes, Sadiq, sometimes you don't understand something, but because the person who is saying it knows what they are talking about, you put aside what you don't know or don't know. You just follow because you know the guy or the person in front of you has your interest at heart. So you don't have to understand everything, but you just follow. Sometimes you just have to follow. If you want to insist on understanding everything before you follow, it may be too late.
You will be too late.
Had just followed Nkrumah.
Exactly.
Just follow him.
Could you imagine?
This, all that, 10 years.
Could you imagine?
If Nyerere and Nkrumah had united, can you imagine?
Oh man, that would have been the masterful. That would have been a masterful move against the colonialists.
Today, still arguing. The other day,
everybody
they want. I was saying on the WhatsApp group, there was this news that I think it was Mali, or either Mali or Burkina Faso had launched a satellite into space, to protect its country. And I was saying in the WhatsApp group, why are African countries separately launching satellites into space? Why can't we guys just unite and have one satellite across the entire continent? And then someone took me on. No, we can't do that. It's not feasible. Blah, 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 blah. And I challenged the person. This is
they are compromised.
Yeah, this is somebody with
their minds are still compromised. Yeah, that's the problem, and they thinking these little tiny countries are going to be able to compete against a world power like America.
Imagine Gambia and China negotiating. China, Gambia. I mean, come on, are you serious?
Ain't no logic to that. You know what I mean? It would be better for us kidnapped Africans to do negotiating because of our economic power.
It's even more. In some cases.
You understand?
Thank you so much for your contribution. Those of you who have joined us, this is the Consciencism Study Group. We meet on Thursdays and Saturdays. Thursdays, we discuss philosophy and ideology. And on Saturdays, we try to have a conversation like we're having now. And everybody's free to chip in, and share your thoughts on Africa's unification. There are now about 13 of us on the call. So do come in and share your thoughts. African Institution Support Group has his or her hand up. Not sure if it's a man or a woman, so I'll just say his or her hand up. Yeah, please come in and share your thoughts. You heard what Brother Sadiki said. You heard what Brother Giovannis also said. Please feel free and share your thoughts.
Thank you for this platform.
Sister? Yes, sorry. See, this is why I need your name. Otherwise, I can't see.
No, it's fine. I'm used to it in these Pan-African spaces. They think that I'm a man.
No, but we don't.
No,
Sister, we don't.
You are different because at least you left a room to say he or she. But I'm used to people, especially if they don't hear my voice, thinking that I'm a man because they don't expect a woman to be involved in these spaces, to be as eloquent as I am, to be ideologically inclined the way that I am.
Before you continue, you notice I said that I'm not sure if it's a man or a woman. You notice I said that.
Yeah.
That's because I'm conscious that the Pan-African space cannot just be men. Half of our army are women. Without them, we are going nowhere.
Yeah. So anyway, in fact, that leads me to the issue of culture. You think that way because you are culturally conscious, or probably your level of education, you are very sensitized on gender issues, right? and you understand the dynamics about oppression and things like, and the importance of recognizing every member of society as an equal. So that comes with Pan-Africanism. However, the reason why in Africa our African unity seems like we're not going, we seems to be going round in circles. I'll say so because of the first thing about culture. Our culture, how we treat each other in communities, how we interact with each other. I think how we used to treat each other probably when you were young, during your heydays, and how we treat each other these days, there's no longer that sense of brotherhood. This is my sister, this is my brother. You see them struggling, you have that desire to help. You see another African start a business and they are struggling and they need your support. You put in a hand, you chip in one way or the other to support that. You celebrate each other's achievement. But the culture these days is more individualistic. In fact, you will find, and this is everywhere, even in communities, even at a political level, you will find people smiling at each other in public, but they go behind each other to destroy each other's image, to destroy each other's businesses, to speak ill against each other, to destroy each other's reputation. And that's why you see even these politicians, one day they are friends. Tomorrow, because there's little money involved, they're already divided. They're already campaigning against each other just because there's little money involved. So we need, I don't know what programs we can have in place to have that movement like they had in the US when Nkrumah went there and he was inspired by the Black Americans. They're calling each other brother. They're holding each other's hands. They are saying they're so pro-Africa. They are proud about everything African. There are people, African Americans up to this day, who swear that I'll never work for a white man. I would rather start my own business. I would rather hustle something, but I'll never work for a white man. I'll never support a white person's business when there's a black brother who's doing the same business whom I could buy and purchase from. How did African Americans manage to do that? They even have festivals called Kwanzaa. Of course, they were kidnapped. They lost their language, their ethnic history, but they've managed today to create one of the largest calendar recognized holiday called Kwanzaa during Christmas. And they have these huge festivals, and they will be acting more African than Africans themselves. Sister, how did they manage to rebuild that culture? Yes.
But how should I call you? Or how should we call you?
Oh, my name is Modesta.
Modesta.
Yeah, or you can call me with my African name, Yokai.
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 Yokai. So Sister Yokai, it seems to me you are talking about two things as far as the unification of Africa is concerned.
I'm talking about a lot of things because of the limited time, so I'm mixing.
I understand. But listen to you, I am getting two things. One is the lack of love for one another.
Yeah.
And then the question of then the unity that comes from that love.
Yeah.
That's what I am getting.
Yes. Because if we do not have
to love one another.
So we have to really embrace that culture again. I don't know how, because the societies today are becoming so individualistic. We prioritize selfishness and we fight over money, and we want money all the time. Of course, everybody wants to survive.
Yes.
But money is dividing a lot of people, even in politics. We are talking about neocolonialists ending up in government. These people, when they start off these political parties, you can rally with them. You can say, wow, we found a Pan-Africanist at last. Then when they get into office, they get a few monies, they get comfortable, they start getting approached by foreign entities, offering them this, offering them that, then within a year or two, it's a different person, or you end up with the same politician you had in office. So that thing about money, again, we have to have a really strong economic base, or a way of supporting our political parties or political institutions, so that they are able to sustain themselves, to fund their members, so that they are not easily enticed by brown envelopes that can make them act against certain things. Even in the African Union, somebody was talking about how African Union brown envelopes from France be flying back and forth to stop.
Sister, before you continue, spell your name for me again. Does it start with Y?
I will write it. I will write it for you.
Okay. Well, in the chat.
Brother Kwame.
Yes, hold on, brother Pigeon. Are you? Is it in the chat, brother, sister? Okay, good. Yes, yes, brother Pigeon.
I'm writing it.
I have a personal contact.
In the chat. Is that correct? Sorry?
I have Sister Modesta personal contact.
Okay. So Sister Modesta, you know Sister Modesta very well.
Yeah, she knows me. She knows me.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So what
I'm interested in the African name. Spell that for me, please.
I've written it in the chat.
It's in the chat.
Yeah.
Yokai. What does it mean?
It means remember.
Thanks for reminding us.
It's Shona. It's Shona. I'm from Zimbabwe. Right. It's Shona. It means yokai. Remember.
Yokai, yeah.
Yeah. So we are realizing that as much as in the small circles that are really driven to make change, they don't have money to fund programs. They are dependent on funding. We cannot fund our own institutions. So how can we advocate for unity and dream for it to happen when we don't have the resources? Now, it remains a dream.
Sister Yokai, on that question, the envelopes are on 3 levels. The first level is the brown ones that are flying between the imperialists and the African leaders or misleaders. That's the first level of brown envelopes. The second level is in Parliament, where the brown envelopes are redistributed to the parliamentarians so they can pass bogus laws.
Exactly.
That's the second level of brown envelope. The third level is when the parliamentarians want to go to Parliament, they give envelopes to the people. Sometimes they don't put them in envelopes, they just share them. So these are the 3 levels of brown envelopes that are happening, and it has corrupted our whole African political economy. And so you are asking, if this is going on, how can we unite? Is that correct?
Yeah. How is unity possible? Because I compare with the US. I lived in the US, I've lived in Europe, and I see their systems. The reason why they can stand on their principle is because most people are financially independent. They are not in poverty so much that they cannot even go to the bank. Like in Africa, you cannot even go to the bank to get a loan if you're in hard times. You don't have social security. You don't have such things. So even you are so desperate that anything that comes your way can make you sway off your principles. In Europe, when people are economically empowered, they have independence even to cast out a politician if it is saying, because they can protect themselves financially, they can protect themselves socially even as well, because they're independent. Independent is not about a piece of paper that says your country is independent. Independence is financial independence, your ability to live with to survive, without being dependent on someone else. But in Africa, we are still dependent on a politician to eat. People are unemployed. There are no industries.
So, Yokai.
Yeah.
In the US, recently, when Kamala Harris was confirmed by Biden, immediately groups of Americans came together And the last time I checked, she had raised 200 million for her election.
Yeah.
This is not from organized interests. This is just ordinary Americans.
These are people with money.
$10, $5. Now, in African countries, if you want to run an election, you have to go and borrow money sometimes.
You have to look for an NGO.
Yeah.
Because your followers are poor. They're actually asking you for money. I have campaigned for women on the streets. Like I've worked with politicians on their campaign trails, and I have worked with this woman before, and we would go into the high density suburbs campaigning. Right, we go on the shopping center, we gather a crowd. That crowd, yeah, they are listening, but at the end they'll say, "So, sister, are you giving us a drink? Will you give us $10 so that we can feed? Because yes, you have said good things, but we are hungry. We are hungry." And you can see that people are poor. You cannot raise money from that political campaign. So she was relying on NGOs.
Yokai,
yeah.
Here is the thing. The same people go to church and they donate at church.
Well, they have, but even if you see the time,
when they go to church, they don't ask the church to give them food.
Yeah. So now they are
happy. So the ordinary people are happy to give their little to the church. Yeah. But they're not giving it to the political party that will come into office and save them. So I am agreeing with you that we need some education so our people will understand. They shouldn't ask you. They should go and ask the church rather for the drink, and then give you the opportunity to help put a government in place that can unite Africa.
Yes. So now that education, understanding that even the role of a politician, we expect that a politician, because we assume that a politician is rich, we expect that you feed us. If I align myself with this politician, I'll eat. Now you're breeding more problems of corruption, of nepotism. It breeds a lot of problems. So how can we unite if our political environment is like that? People are not financially strong to even stand on principle, to question even when they see things are wrong, because half of them are poor. Two, in education also, even those who are not poor, they are not thinking about the importance of politics. They are just minding their own business. They are right now, how many are we on this platform? 16.
That's a lot.
But do you know how many people are on the platform where they are talking about celebrities and things that don't even matter? There are hundreds. They are locked in there in hundreds.
I understand. They're on TikTok and so on. Sister Yokai, thank you so much.
So just to round up, another thing is when the movement was so strong, we had more role models like Kwame, like Malimu, like what? But that generation has died off. The Mugabes have died off. Who right now can we say in Africa are we looking at as a model to say this here, what he says is leading the movement?
Sister Yokai is one.
Yeah, who are we saying like now?
Brother Pigeon is one. Brother Carrington, I know a few here. Brother Carrington.
You know, so I'm like among the crop of leaders who are at the African Union right now. How many can we say are not compromised? How many can we say are really standing for the African revolution and our complete emancipation and liberation and unity? Right now, we are, yes, they have activities. Things are written on paper, but look at their own relations. Are they really representing the principles of Ubuntu and African unity?
Interesting.
Right now, President Raila Odinga is running for AUC chair. There's a Kenyan brother here. Would he vote for him to become an AUC chair? All the Kenyans here who know Raila.
Absolutely not.
Honest. Would you say he is a leader of African unity?
Sister Yokai.
Anyway, I'm done. That was my last question.
No, it's okay. On that note, I want to hand over to Brother Pigeon because I was meant to just hold the fort for him to sort out his mic. And it's now almost 8 o'clock. Brother Pigeon. Please continue.
Thank you so much, Brother Kwame. Hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes, it's now much better.
Will you allow me to play the Nkrumah talk for 10 minutes, or we go straight to the conversations?
It's up to you. Brother Sam had his hand up. Now we have Minister Lazarus also with his hand up. So you make that decision.
Okay, thank you. So just to let you know that we are equally live on our YouTube channel. We tried the live stream and it's working out. There are people who are joining us from our YouTube channel. Those who might not be able to join us directly via the Zoom. And we actually have this conversation. So yes, we are trying to look deeply on what is ailing Africa, what's stopping us from unity, and what should we do or what must be done for us to move forward towards the unification. As Brother Giovanni had said before, yes, the government of Kenya is actually trying to unite the opposition. But the question is, what unity do we need of? Is it a unity of purpose or unity of people? Because now we have unity of politicians, the so-called negative forces in the continent. But do that result to the unity the Africa need? The elites in the continent are united. They do their business together as they loot us and continue doing what they want. The politicians in the continent are united as they take everything they want from us. Is that the unity what we want? Is the unity in the name of bringing this representative from this tribe to this representative to this tribe is what Africa need? But rather we need unity of purpose, unity that can enable us to develop Africa and develop everybody for the welfare of all of us. So yes, let's continue the conversation. Let me get first of all to Brother Sam before I go to Minister Lazarus. Brother Sam, your hand was up before.
Thank you, and good evening, everybody. And thanks, Sister Yokai. We really enjoyed your inputs, but I was getting worried as the discussion was going on. And I believe right at the end, that's where I found that we are now bringing back our purpose, what you are talking about, Brother Pigeon. Because we all long for those days of the Kwame Nkrumahs, the Sekou Toures, the Amilcar Cabrals of Africa, those giants that used to preach and teach and educate their nations. You know, I was privileged to be in Guinea, to be trained in Guinea during the time of Ahmed Sekou Toure. Every week, every day, there would be speeches by President Sekou Toure addressing the nation and telling them about African unity, about Africa and its development. The same thing was happening in Tanzania when we were there. Mwalimu Nyerere did the same thing. So we are all longing for that. But I think the essence of this is what we came at the end, where we say, it is Sister Yeukai, it is Brother Kwame, it is Brother Pigeon. We must go out and go and practice what our forefathers have taught us. What I have seen in Guinea, I must come and practice here in South Africa. What we are doing in this study group, exactly. We must bring more of our brothers and sisters into this study group. We must not end here. We must also go back on the ground now. We are saying almost all these countries in Africa are under neocolonialism, basically. So it is up to us to go back and teach the nation. You know, the earlier discussion, I heard members saying in South Africa, there's still fights between Africans. And that thing, it's happening because the leaders that said were in the liberation movement, when they came back home, they said they are free, they adopted the free care style of living. They never went back to the masses and told them how this freedom came about, how this freedom was brought about by the support almost of everybody. You know, we had a simple issue last 2 months ago or a month ago of a young lady from parents from Nigeria who was on a beauty pageant here in South Africa. And that caused a lot of hullabaloo. But people will tell you, not only our leaders lived in Nigeria, not only our students, when they ran away 1976, went into Nigeria. Most of our leaders had diplomatic passports that were issued not only by Nigeria, by Guinea, by Ivory Coast, all those countries that supported us, Tanzania. They gave our leaders and some of our operatives passports, diplomatic passports, to be able to execute the struggle. But our leaders didn't come back to South Africa and educate our people. And that is where we are currently with this situation, that we need to go back now. We who see the light must go and throw back the light into our people. The same way that the Nyereres of this world were able to tell the Tanzanians that South Africans are liberation movement fighters, even when there's no food in Tanzania, the liberation forces would get food. We should be able to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Sam. Indeed, you're bringing the aspect of unity in action. Somebody just told me today that, you see, the biggest challenge we face as a continent is that the forces that are against our unity and development are so strong and so united. And therefore, most of us who fight for the same liberation are not getting the strong support towards moving towards what you want. But the people who are fighting or working as their agents are very heavily supported, everything else. And then we are here struggling, and then Maximus on our poverty and whatever goes on in our society. So then we become beggars to beg them. And what Brother Sadiki was saying is, why should our continent borrow money from white men while our brothers outside the continent are the people who make up the GDP of those countries? Why don't we allow our brothers to come back in the continent instead of the continent asking money as loans, but give them opportunity to invest their money here? In the year of return in Ghana, in 1 year alone, Ghana was able to make over $2 billion out of people who are ready to come back. Burkina Faso and Dr. Arikana are trying to do the same to bring people back. So it's a high time that we have to see how we come in action to support real action towards what we do. Because as long as we don't give that strong support, that physical and emotional support, then most of our soldiers in the liberation struggle and unification struggle will die or will starve on the journey or in their struggle. So this is very important as you raise it, Brother Sam. Let me get to Minister Lazarus. Yes, Minister, please come in.
Yes, give thanks, give thanks. This is a very powerful discussion. I thank you for allowing me to join. I am Minister Lazarus Nazarai, Minister of Foreign Affairs for the Ethiopian World Federation, Incorporated, which is an IGO, a governmental organization created and ordained by His Imperial Majesty August 25th, 1937. Many of the things I've witnessed in most meetings, they come to the questions of, first, what do we call politics? Second, what do we call money? Our wealth is our unity. Politics is a tricky question when we define it based on the paradigm that we have been set in. First off, and let's just take in the construct of Africa at this time, the Berlin Conference created the borderlines. So what we call Kenya, what we call these areas are first the formalizations in the Berlin Conference. Before that, we had kingdoms and queendoms. Now, when colonialization left the colonies' position, which were on the outskirts, on the coastlines of Africa, and the Berlin Conference was implemented, they placed governments on top of the kingdoms and queendoms. So the first in international law we learn is that customary law was before international law, which is treaties. So what they did was they created an authority to oversee the customary laws of the lands. So now when we say politics, we're talking about constructs that were placed on top of the customary or the indigenous ways to extract resources, to divide the people. So this mechanisms of what we would like to say is politics is a construct that was created to extract and weaken the indigenous people's controls of the lands. So when we think about that, there is only certain factors that we miss in that. The Papa Bull doctrine or the Dumas de Veres, which created that perpetuity of servitude for Europeans to claim in Africa. The Papa Bulls of what it was, the Inferna, which was for the islands in the West. But the Dumas de Versa.
That was of 14. Are you talking about the 1452?
1452 okay. Was dealing with the perpetual servitude of Africa. When we ask most people what was going on in that time, where did this notion or where did this drive pop up to place Africa in perpetual servitude? What was the battle going on? And most people cannot identify where would the Pope, or who we call the Pope, feel that they have gained their authority to usher this in. So first, when we recognize the Pope gave authority. So anything that we call a government is not a separation of church and state. Its authority is derived from a churchical decree. So most of the laws were implemented to subdue indigenous ways to make the people obedient to this. So when we look at most of the laws that are laid out in the structures of what we call governments today, they are suppressive laws of indigenous ways. Now, when we're studying this, if you go to where a lot of people have been going, where they're saying, well, all of this is commercial, this is how they've made us chattel, and they've sold us as commercial paper. So that's why I asked the first question, what do we call money? Because we are working in a fiat system that uses commercial paper. Do we as a people understand or overstand that commercial paper that they're creating is based on our participation in their system? So if we learn and understand that, then we're not broke, we're just broken apart. Because if we understand commercial paper, we could never be broke. But because most of our leaderships have no reality of this, they orchestrate the movement in a poverty-stricken mindset. So they weaken it. Now, in the second component, most people have studied history based on a coin-tail operation and on the lack of international law overstanding, and based on precepts given by the religious dogmas to trick us in division. And I say that because when I ask most people, what did His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie do? Not Rastafari, not religion, You know, South Africa knows because they got their apartheid removed because of the steps that His Majesty pushed, using also the information that was created by Malcolm X in a civil action suit based on here in America. So there were battles of international law going on that most of us are not educated on. So first, the Pope claimed to be the highest authority on earth based on his throne and based on the primacy of Peter. His doctrines of the Papal Bull become aspects of liens against the people. Now, when you study a lien, you have to have a superior claim to remove a lien, or else the other person becomes the holder in due course. So every government then has to pay them their tithes because they're the first lien holder on the property. So this is how our lands and our people became part of a commercial system. Now, the Pope made this claim under the primacy of Peter as the highest throne of God on earth, as the elect of God. November the 2nd, November the 1930, His Imperial Majesty was crowned King of Kings. Now, many of us will take this as religion, not understanding the history of international law and what we're talking about. There's a word that most people miss. It's called Basilius. If you haven't studied the word Basilius, you do not know what the battle was going on in which the Pope was claiming this authority. There's a war that was hidden, that was moving under the title of the Basilius. They were claiming a throne right that we miss. And because we're not educated in it, we lose that positioning. Now, when we look at the Basilius and we study it, it takes you to how the Pope and them started this claim for being a royal kingdom or being a royal throne. This was the basis of the law. If you look this up, they'll always tell you that the last two that were supposed to be the rightful ones to hold this was the actual king of Persia and the king of Axum. Now, when Africa is given certain history, we're not given it from the Ethiopian kings list. When you study the kings list, you'll find out there's a thing called the Zing dynasty. You're able to chase the Zing to the Amazigh. You're able to trace the Zing to the Rain Queens of Zimbabwe. You're able to trace the Zing into South Africa. See, there's a every royal kingdom in Africa has a rightful birthright under the Basilius. And this goes all the way into their claimages in the scriptural, which that was where the international law was laid first.
Okay.
So I'll close out. I'm about to close out. So the Pope made his claim that he was the highest authority. His Imperial Majesty later on, June 1935, made an edict and a decree, because the Berlin Conference has already been issued throughout Africa. And His Majesty challenged the Pope's positioning and their decree under the Papal Bull by stating he is the emperor of all of Africa and that he is the king of all Negroes around the world, because that's what they're classifying us as, including those in the United States. He contested the Papal Bull doctrine's authority, the jurisdiction. That was June 1935. October 1935, Mussolini invaded Ethiopia. And most people never understood what was going on in international law. They did not know the contestations of jurisdictions and authorities that were being battled with. They still don't have a clarity of it today, and they don't know how to use it to counter the measures that are used to disable us economically, to disable us in authority over our lands, over the minerals, and so forth. There was a position given, and if we're able to move past indifferences and study it from international law, we can go as understanding that that makes us also the standings of prisoners of war, which gives us the customary and humanitarian laws to support. That gives us many different grounds, even under the Montevideo Convention. So there are answers. And last, and I close, is that we're working with several of the kingdoms to create a tax residency certificate where all of the people of the diaspora are given a standing as a residency of Africa, which allows, just like the Russians do, which just like all of the Europeans do, where instead of us paying taxes to our colonizers, we create a tax, our taxes go to Africa into a diaspora fund so that we can develop on many grounds. Meaning we're funding our own demise, and we can rechannel those funds to help us build. So there are answers. Give thanks for the tolerance. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Brother Kwame, please come in regards to what Minister said. And I know there's what you call the politics of international law.
Yeah, I think the Minister has reminded us of two presentations that we've had in our Saturday classes. One was from Brother Pigeon himself, who went at length into the Papal Bull and some of the things that the Minister mentioned. And then, Pigeon, what was the other brother's name again?
Brother Foucault, who did the Knight Templars.
Brother Foucault, yes, who gave us about 5 sessions on the hidden government, the invisible government. And all these are on our YouTube channel. So, Minister, we are happy if you want to, because today is not, obviously, there's not enough time. But if you would like to give us an extended presentation over the following weeks, so that we understand all that you are saying, because some of us are hearing some of these things for the first time, and we don't properly understand it. So, for instance, some have raised a question about the property rights. So before Africa became independent, we know that African lands were used as, or African countries, a whole country was used in terms of documentation in the city of London to raise funds. I mean, they use the land of an entire country to raise funds in the city of London here. And those documents that were used to raise these funds are sitting in vaults here in the UK. So when Africa became independent, say Ghana became independent or Kenya became independent, what happened to those documents? Where are those documents? And if we are free, why are those documents still sitting in vaults in places that we don't even know about? So, Minister, you've raised some very vital questions, which I think you need to come back. Brother Pigeon will liaise with you. You can have as many Saturdays as you like and explain these things to us in chunks that we can absorb, if that is okay with you.
Yes, I am very open to that.
Okay.
So Brother Pigeon will liaise with you on that. Thank you.
Minister, I hope you got the link to this conversation via an invite link somewhere. So that must be my number that shared the link. But I will also request your private contact so that I can get in touch with you privately. But yes, I think there's a lot we need to learn on the politics of international law. I came across that book some times back. I'm still finding where I had my soft copy with it. But yes.
Can I come in here just briefly? So the issues that the minister has raised is also one of the things that is a problem right now in Ghana, where there's an argument over who founded the nation Ghana, because people don't understand international law. And the president of Ghana today, Nana Akufo-Addo, who is supposed to be a lawyer, some people dispute that, has come to tell the nation that the one who founded the nation international law is not the founder. Very confusing. So the issue that the brother has raised, which the minister has, which goes to the heart of the unification of Africa, I think is something that we need to understand.
Okay, thank you. Permit me just to play a 5-minute part of what Nkrumah said to bring us back to the conversation which we have on the unity of Africa. Then I'll get back to Brother Koko and Sister Chisomo. It's actually 12 minutes, but I'll play 5 minutes of it. So that we
don't forget the African Union anthem.
Yeah, I'll play that as well. Let me play 5 minutes of this Nkrumah speech just to bring us back to this conversation.
Okay.
To welcome you to Accra and to this conference of African freedom fighters and supporters of the growing movement for Africa's liberation and unity. It is good for our cause to have a periodic meeting of this kind to examine our position in the great struggle to rid Africa completely and forever of imperialism and its handmaidens, colonialism and neocolonialism. Africa is rich and not poor. As the great wealth that has been taken out of our continent over 5 centuries of spoliation and extortion very well proves. Africa has immense actual and potential wealth: gold, diamond, copper, manganese, bauxite, iron ore, uranium, asbestos, chrome, cobalt, a host of other minerals. Our essential agricultural produce have all been drained away by colonialist imperialism. Africa is far from being poor. It is Africans who are poor, not Africa. And they are poor because of the uncounted profit that has been made out of the exploitation of their labor and their lands. If we are being baited to enter the European community, we must have something that community needs, and needs badly, when it pretends to offer a bonus by way of aid. When Greeks come bearing grapes, should we not look them well in the mouth? If I may mix my metaphor, but I'm sure you get my meaning. I raise this point so that it will stay in your minds when you may be tempted by the seductive promises of new colonialism to forget the real character of colonialist imperialism and be persuaded away from your own true interests and those of Africa. For today, we must each see ourselves as part of Africa in order that we may face colonialist imperialism and its new form, neocolonialism, on a continent-wide front. This requires some plain speaking. And for the sake of Africa, let us speak plainly. As I see it,
yeah, I'll stop it there. So let's continue the conversation. Permit me to stop it there. Yes, Brother Koko, come in, and Sister Chisomo.
The African anthem, don't forget, yeah?
I'll play the African anthem as we end towards the end. Thank you. Brother Koko.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Comrade Pigbin, and everyone tonight. Greetings to you all. I don't know. I feel conflicted. There are some good speeches tonight, as well as good questions that are being asked. And I'm also very, very happy to hear the voice of our sister, you guys from Zimbabwe. We are always looking for the ladies to, you know, to take the fight to where it's supposed to be taken, and they are always welcome here. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but thank you for mentioning that. The sisters, we keep saying we want to hear from more sisters. Thank you. Carry on. Brother Pidgin, my apologies.
Thank you, brother. One of the many hats I wear is that of governance pillar. I lead the governance pillar from Ford. I haven't done a lot of stuff for a while now. But one of the things I was asking about was customary law. And when I delved into that, especially into Lesotho, I found that customary law was being undermined again by the common law. And that is being financed by the United States of America using their big pockets through the Millennium Challenge account. So my brother there from the Minister of Foreign Affairs, just so you know, the war goes on against the people, the poor, everyone. And what they have done is to split us. So you in America, if you are doing your own thing, and here us in the continent, we are doing our own thing, we are not going to win this war. It's time we unite this fight and take it to the colonizer, the imperialist, and whoever is doing all of these things. That's one point. The second point I have was we have to start small. We have to start small. Our brother here, Pigbin, was invited to a course which runs today and tomorrow. But because of the economic challenges, Pigbin wasn't able to attend today. He wasn't. So if we want to show solidarity, we have to start now. People like Pigbin should not want for anything. They should be supported. We should, all of us, be helping Pigbin. We need to come together and say, you know what? We as an organization, as a movement, as a group, CSG, we don't have a lot, but let's find a way in which we can take care of one another. That's how we start. And I think Sister Yukai asked some of those questions, that the people are hungry. What do you do? What do we do about that? We cannot tell people who are hungry about unity. They will laugh in our faces. They will look at those who come bearing the brown envelopes, Brother Kwame, as you call them. We need to start thinking in a different mindset. We need to start saying, what can we do to make those changes, the small changes? Because this is a war. The war is going on. Just to close out now, I think Sister Yuga was asking the right questions, but having lived in both the USA, in Europe, and in Africa, you should have some of the answers to the questions you're asking. You said in the US or in the West, they are more organized, more united. In Africa, they are not. You have to remember what they did to Africa. That impoverishment and that colonization of the minds have led people who are disempowered, people with nothing. I'm sure our brothers in the West, they are thinking they sold us. They sold that because that's what they are told, that we sold them. They don't know. We never sold them. Nor are we under control, in control of our own destiny. The Africans are not in control of their own destiny. They are not, because they have been miseducated. They have been impoverished. They have been disempowered. It's time we think differently about this. I don't know, even if we have to start our own Pan-African churches, whatever it is, we have to think differently. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Brother Coco. Indeed, I like the conversation because we are moving towards what must be done. And Brother Kwame, hope you're helping me to take note of so many of the proposals that are being put that must be done. Because, of course, after what must be done, the question is now, let's do it. Once we know what must be done, we should do it exactly. But I really appreciate it.
Yes, remind us all to put our suggestions in the chat so that we can collate them later.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we, of course, from the CSG level, also been thinking. I think it was from Africa Liberation Day. We've been thinking of how we set up the so-called Pan-African Technical Working Group, so that let the brains we have in the continent and outside the continent sit together and look at our education and bring us a template that is a liberated concept, not a concept that is totally neo-colonial and totally embedded by the neo-colonial influence. What is the liberation education template for the continent? And then we can move forward to advocate, propagate, and implement and campaign for it, because we really need a common, united framework that can actually liberate and develop Africans in an Africa or in Afrocentric way, not in their way, because whatever we have today only produce people who work best for what they want. And if you remember Dr. Trey's book, the codes for the white supremacy, the codings, the law, which of course ministers touch, is one of the issue. Education is part of it. Even politics. Look at the democracy that they push to us as a solution to us getting somebody. And even that democracy, they still use it to elect their person they want. So basically, democracy don't work for us. They say one man, one vote, but the counter or he who count the vote is the one who matters. So we go election every day, we fight over election, and we still get the same results of their puppet systems. So we are in a web. We are in a system that is so intertwined and so closed that nobody wants us to get out. But we believe by sharing our thinking, by sitting down and having this conversation, we will come up with thinking and solutions and idea that we can commit ourselves to work towards its implementation so that we can see a liberated, united, and developed Africa. Brother Kwame, may you come in a bit as I look for more people if you still want to come in, please feel free to raise your hands. Brother Kwame shares his thoughts as well.
Yeah, thank you. So let's hear more. Let's hear from more of you. Brother Carrington, you have your hand up, and then we'll hear from more sisters. We've got Shireen here. We've got Myra here. Who else have we got? Other sister have we got? We've got Sister Grace. I think I saw Sister Grace earlier. Is that Grace?
Yeah, she left. I think she has dropped off. She'll be back.
Is Chosa? Is that a woman? CHOSA.
No, I'm a man. I wanted to raise my hand, but unfortunately on my screen I don't have a hand.
Oh, I see. In that case, you speak after Carrington. Yeah, I'll call you to speak after Carrington. Brother Carrington, you speak, and then Brother Chosa can also speak, and then we'll hear from our sisters as well. Thank you. Yes, Brother Carrington.
Thank you very much, everyone. I hope you're having a lovely Saturday. I would really love to talk about tribal politics or regional politics and the hindrance it poses for our project, our Pan-African project, and even for the project of the maintenance of the stability of the current states that we have, Kenya, etc. So, remember that before the Europeans came, we had these independent ethnic states. This is just the historical reality. Although there were confederations, like the Bunyoro Kitara, there were confederations of the Akan, there were confederations in Southern Africa, but for the most part, we had these ethnic states. Now, within 20 years of the Europeans deciding to control, not just trade with the continent, to control the continent, they had overrun the entire continent. Now, a lot of this we think is because of technology, and it is true. Technology has a role to play. Weapons technology has a role to play, but also social technology is important. The Kikuyu in some period talked to the British because they thought the British would help them overrun and keep the Maasai away. The Maasai talked to the British because the Maasai thought they would help them keep the Kikuyu away. And slowly by slowly, using these divide and conquer tactics already discussed, within 20 years, the entire African continent was under the control of Europe. Now, it took almost one generation, and Europeans, because of the relative ease with which they overran the continent, thought they would be in Africa politically for 1,000 years. There are these letters of administrators, European administrators, saying that they will be in Africa in political, economic, and social control of Africa for at least 1,000 years. This failed almost within one generation. And the reason it failed is the guy behind Brother Christian's Zoom background, i.e., a group of African intellectuals sat down and developed the ideology. Marcus Mosiah Garvey, Kwame Nkrumah, we know these names, sat down and developed the principles of African nationalism and Pan-Africanism. As soon as these principles were articulated properly and developed into a political program of action, the Kenya African Union, the Kenya African National Union, the Zimbabwe African National Union, the African National Congress, I hope you see where I am going with this. Within 20 years, again, from 1956 to 1976, 90% of the African continent was liberated. Why? Because of the coordination from Ghana, because of the coordination in Nairobi in the case of East Africa. Now, after liberation, the very thing that gave African nationalists power, i.e. African nationalism, was dropped because tribal-based politics was expedient. If you are able as a president to convince majority of the regions by bribing them with small development projects, you can be president indefinitely. And this is exactly what most African politicians did. Exactly the same African politicians who had espoused the values of African nationalism that liberated Africa. And this is the situation we are faced with. Up to the point, yesterday on Twitter, I was discussing with someone, a brother of mine from Kenya, who is pushing for the formation of Nyanza People's Republic, a small ethnic nation that is separate from Kenya. And there are similar discussions in the central part of Kenya, in the northeastern part of Kenya. We will go back to these very small states, even smaller than they are right now. And there are similar discussions, by the way, for Zanzibar. We will go back to these smaller states, and within a generation again, we will be picking coffee for Europeans. So, how about we do the opposite? Try and understand our history. What is it that liberated us? African nationalism, Pan-Africanism. Can we use it? As I have said continuously, Africa right now does not need liberation as much as it needs empowerment. Africans need to have power, the ability to stand on their own, which is a very different program from the program of liberation. The program of liberation is waged through war, struggle, protests, contestation. The program of empowerment, which is a different thing, is waged through science, technology, industrialization, and economic liberalization. If we are able to do this, how can we be informed by the principles of Pan-Africanism? That we can put meat we can give the African Continental Free Trade Area the teeth to bite African dictators who are trying to game the system and to carry out protectionism. Anyway, in terms of that, I am seeing signs of life. When the protests in Kenya were taking place, there were several young people. Every Twitter space I joined, and Kenyans in the house will bear this for me. There was at least one young person directly complaining that we don't want to go to Germany. The president says he has lined up work for young Kenyans in Germany, in Saudi Arabia, etc. But these young people are complaining and saying, we don't want to work in Germany. We don't want to work in Saudi Arabia. Can you implement and fast track the Continental Free Trade Area that will allow me to have a service or a good that I can offer to my fellow African brothers and sisters, and vice versa, because this is where our future is. It is not a mistake that the wealthiest parts of Africa are also the most ethnically diverse. Nairobi, Johannesburg, Lagos, Accra. It is not a mistake. It is not an accident. The land in Nairobi is not very fertile, but the people in Nairobi cause Nairobi plots, small acres of plots in Nairobi to go for $1 million. So can we push this idea of African multiculturalism and African nationalism? I think that is where our future lies. Thank you very much.
Yes, Brother Carrington, as always, thank you very much. For those of you who don't know, he's our resident physicist when we hold our philosophy and ideology classes. So here is a physicist who is directing his powerful mind to the issues of liberation, unification, and development. And we ask, if we have more physicists, more scientists doing this, where will we be today? So thank you very much. So let's hear from Chosa, and then I hope I pronounce your name right, brother, and then we'll hear from our sisters.
Thank you. You pronounced it well.
Thank you.
I'm new here today. My brother who knows me invited me here.
Who is that brother?
I'm from Zimbabwe. It should be Pigeon. Yeah. Brother okay. Pigeon.
All right. He's my brother too.
I'm from I'm from Zimbabwe, but I'm in South Africa, and we are also working on this Pan-African project. So what we identified is that what exactly perpetuated the problems that we are having. We found out that institutionalization of various aspects has perpetuated this colonial system, even up to today. So we started by creating these institutions so that we clearly study and understand what is the problem that we are facing. The first thing was about unity. And to unify the continent, we need to work on the universal problems that we are facing. Because if you look at the colonial system, there is a lot of universality in how they do their things. Whatever applies in South Africa also applies in Ghana and everywhere. So if we understand those universal problems, then we can come up with solutions. Like, for example, the simple one is the educational system that we have. You'd find that the British Cambridge would come up with a curriculum, and then after developing their curriculum, they sponsor it in Africa, so Brother that Chosa, they implement whatever.
Brother yes. Chosa, before you continue, can I ask you, do you think that the brown envelopes matter is also a universal problem?
The what?
The brown envelopes. The bribery.
Or the laws.
Yeah, the bribery the brown envelopes that they put under tables. At the presidential level, they are bribed. At the parliamentary level, they take money and pass laws. And then at the electoral level, they also take money from the politicians and vote for them. Do you think that is a universal problem for the whole of Africa?
Yes, it is. It is a universal problem, and it is also a broader. It's so broad in its nature because if I'm to speak about Africans naturally, their nature, they are not like that, but there are circumstances that contribute to, in fact, circumstances that promote that bribery system to go on. You'd find that most of the people who take bribes, it's because of the poverty that is unjust, because the poverty that we have, it's unjust poverty. Otherwise, if it was not unjust, we could be somewhere.
And the aim of neocolonialism is to keep them poor so that they can continue to take bribes and not put in governments that will work for the continent.
Yes, yes. But if you look at it from the way I was looking at it before the colonial system started, we had a very good system in terms of settlement, how our people were settled. They were settled in a system that promote food security for each household, right? There was surplus of food. And our seeds, they were compatible with our environments, the climates and all that. So when they came, they took that away from us. They brought their seeds, they brought their fertilizers, and they came up with their system of agriculture, and they displaced our people and settled them in the way that we are settled today, which is a poverty system, because most of our ancestors, they were taken to regions where rainfall was erratic. Even the water table is far below the ground. So it was a struggle for our people. So those are some of these those are some of the areas that we need to look at. We actually came up with our new settlement program that we are creating in our institution.
Which institution?
Sorry?
Which institution is that?
I registered a non-profit organization here in South Africa to deal with such problems, because what we have done under our institution is we have come up with those universal problems. We've got a list of those universal problems, which also includes the law itself, because we've got our African laws, but the laws that are being implemented are the Dutch laws.
And this is what the minister was referring to.
Yes, yes. Those are some of the areas that we need to look at, like if we are looking at reversing the gains of colonialism, because we need to look at what is it that gives them power. You'd find that their power lies on their Dutch law. If we take out the Dutch law from the equation and put forward our Ubuntu laws, they will lose power.
It will change things. Excellent. So, Josa, find time to come and do a proper presentation for us, yeah? Because we'd love to hear you on this. And so liaise with Brother Pigeon. So we haven't heard from sisters for a while, and we only have 10 minutes to go. So let's hear from Sister Myra. Sister Myra, can you come in? And well, not only do you come in, you chair a bit, yeah? Till it's 9 o'clock when Brother Pigeon plays the anthem. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Brother Chosa.
All right.
Thank you, Brother Kwame. I just wanted to comment on what Brother Carrington raised.
Yes, comment and also you chair till the end, yeah?
It's an important issue that he's raised, and I didn't know that there were efforts in territorial areas other than Uganda to go back to our nations. And I think he said he gave an example of his own territorial colonial territory of Kenya, and then I think he mentioned Zanzibar. So there's also a movement in Uganda that is heading that way, and we want our nations. I don't like they use the word tribes. Our nations of Baganda or Basoga or Bacholi to have their own sovereignty. But I say it differently from him because I don't see how that would preclude me. Certainly, if Uganda got sovereignty, I wouldn't stop being a Pan-Africanist. In fact, I would work harder to maybe tell my kingdom to campaign my kingdom to join the Pan-African movement, because still in our nations, in our identity, that give us our identity and our heritage, we can still come together. So maybe if we look at it differently, as Pan-Africanists who are progressive, we should campaign and honor the identity that our African peoples want to live, because that is who we are. We'll never change that. That is what we're born into. We should be proud of it. But also campaign and show them the proof and evidence that there are some areas where we can come together. For example, the military, for example, in the economic areas, So as they're building their identities and their nations, let's also be working to work alongside with them to show them the commonalities between all the different nations that we can fight for at a Pan-Africanist level. That's my thought. Thank you.
And your thought. And so ask Sister Shiren to speak, and then there are other hands up, so you can manage that.
So, Sister Shiren, you have the floor now. Sister Shiren?
Greetings, everybody. Greetings. Can I go next, please, Brother Kwame?
Sister Mara is sharing for the rest of the session.
Oh, Sister Mara, please, may I go next? Is that okay?
Yes, you have the floor.
I'm sorry?
You do have the floor.
No, I was saying, can I go next, please?
Yes, it's your turn, Sister.
Thank you. No, Sister Mara, I'm asking if you can ask another person to comment, and then I will come in after.
Oh, I'm so sorry. My bad.
Please.
My apologies.
Thank you.
I think Minister Lazarus, you have your hand up?
Yes, I wanted to just make a quick statement that research has showed that Africa only loses about 6% to internal corruption. It loses 70% to international corporations who come in with corruption and tax evasion. So they find ways not to pay for the fees and everything in the country, but they're stealing and extracting resources that they're not showing transparency of the level, so they're not paying fees. So 70% of the losses that Africa takes comes from outside corporations. Internal corruption was only listed at 6%, which is better than the United States. Give thanks.
I think Brother Pigeon shared a statistic, which I can't remember the details of, but he showed that there was some kind of expose in Kenya, where one of the big businessmen showed that even some of the so-called debts in Kenya were fake. They were just ways for these imperialists to siphon money out of the country. So I suspect, as Minister Lazarus has said, there's a lot of scamming and fraud going on, and the whole idea, of course, is to take as much money out of our coffers as possible. but it's with the help of our misleaders. So, Sister Shireen, are you ready to speak, or shall I select someone else?
Greetings, Sister Myra. Sorry. Okay, so we're talking about liberation and development of Africa, and it's interesting a lot of the contributions that were being made in regard to this not being a problem that has just begun or started. It even goes before I know a lot of people think it's the Berlin Conference and where Europe carved up Africa. I think it goes even before then. But there's a lot of information where a lot of people are starting to wise up about the misinformation and the lies and the propaganda that we are constantly being told about the continent, and the reverse psychology that has been bestowed upon us to keep everything in a third world mindset. And even the terminologies, the third world, showing us famine, famished communities, flies on children and families, where famine has struck, malaria, HIV and AIDS, all of these biological weapons that have been bestowed upon us in some way or form, even environmental. And I just think that we always talk about an education type of a thing that we need. But even just this week, I was thinking about just education in general, and the system where I live in the UK, for example, and it's a system throughout the world, where it's this missionary, it's a mission to indoctrinate people with specific information, and which is a lot of the times nonsense. And this nonsense perpetuates our ignorance, it perpetuates our inability to unite, our inability to love, and even our inabilities to even realize ourselves at the time. And there was a question that was asked within a group on Facebook, is Africa, are we progressing just generally in the diaspora in a unified way? And some people said yes, some people said no. And I answered no. But then there are innovative stories that I read every single day of our brilliance, our innovative spirit, our creative spirit, our survival, and a lot of like, say for example, even though this may not be a good example, but listening to a talk by Terence Howard and the other brother, he talks about Anunnakis and stuff like that. His name will come again, but I listened to a talk that they had, and they were talking about metaphysics and the spiritual realm, etc., etc. And I just, they were actually talking about inventions and how a lot of the patented inventions around the time of the period, I'll just say the period of the 1600s to even up until today, where we invented the majority of these ideas that are out there, but obviously through, I wouldn't even call it plagiarism, but theft. We do not know in many cases who it was who created these innovative ideas. So we're constantly being trampled and placed down. But I think that as people open their minds, and I think we literally have to continue having these discussions, welcoming more people onto the platform, and like, I think also there's a lot of fear around being able to speak out publicly about our intentions and our aspirations for a unified Africa, or an Africa that will be at the forefront. And I will also say that everything works in cycles, and we may not live to see the cycle of a rebirth of Africa. I just pray that when it happens, it is one that is where we actually are at one with nature, at one with the universe, at one with ourselves. So it isn't just a monetary thing, because there's always an argument about like economics and monetary achievements and gain and whatever and whatnot. But I think that, you know, there has to be a spiritual shift within us as well. And I think also the certain paradigms that we're attached to has to be challenged as well, even though it is very difficult to get out of this system in some way. There has to be some alternatives that are drawn up and available. And I'd just like to say as well, before I leave as well, we have to be very careful as well, because like I have to do an investigation, because, you know, obviously I'm from an island called Carriacou, and there was a hurricane that passed through it, and we have to be very careful that when these natural disasters, well, I don't think it's natural, but anyway, these disasters happen, it gives an opportunity for certain shifts to happen, where there's a devaluation of what would have been a certain price a day before certain natural disasters. And when these natural disasters happen, all of a sudden there's an audit of land, an audit of property, and there's a devaluation. And if you don't understand how the system works, a lot of people will start, I'm just saying, just generally, like in terms of our loyalty to or our understanding of the value of land, for example. And I'm gonna stop, because I know that obviously there's not a lot of time here, but I'm just saying that we have to coincide this with the reparations program and an understanding of how, yes, we may be rewarded reparational money or reparational things, but where does the money circulate and go back into? And I know I've said a lot of things here, and it's quite loaded, but obviously I know we're at the end of the meeting, so my mind is going overdrive. But I hope that some of the things that I've said here is helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Florence. You've added a good note of unification and caution, so I'll hand over to Brother Pigeon to close the meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, all of you who have made it today. I think this has been more of a very conscious discussion, where people have been free to share their thinking, and there have been critical things that have been raised that we actually look forward to see how we can work together towards implementation phase of it. You see, we must keep the conversation going, because if we can't converse, then we will either start fighting or will either be used by them. So there's a lot of civic education, which we call the mental revolution education, that need to be done. And it's from this that we are able to find a way forward on how we move towards the action point. As Brother Coco has said, yes, very important that we must put our resources, our time, and our support fully towards the unification and liberation struggle, because they are doing their best also to continue colonizing and underdeveloping Africa through the projects as loans. They call it education, scholarship, they call it the democracy, they call it military support. We must match equally same efforts that are geared towards liberating us as a people. So thank you very much. And to those who have joined us via those who have joined us via our YouTube channel where we were live, thank you very much for staying with us for all that period of time. We really appreciate your time. We really appreciate your efforts as well. All our recording will be available on our YouTube channel as usual. We have over 130 all recordings of our previous classes. So just to bring to your attention, this is one of our class on unification that takes place every Saturday using the same link from 6 p.m. GMT. We have a main philosophical class where we do philosophy in detail, where we read the text and share the thinking. And what text we read is actually the philosophy and ideology, the Pan-African philosophy and ideology for decolonizing Africa by Africa Liberation, Unification and Development, written by Kwame Nkrumah, every Thursday, same time, 6 p.m. GMT. And I will be sharing the link to all of you to keep joining us so that we can keep the conversation going. With all that being said, permit me to end it here and look forward to have you again. Next Saturday, we'll be having a presentation a bit on, Sister Mara, remind me on that. We'll be having a bit of a guest speaker coming in.
On the Africanizing and indigenizing teacher training education in Africa.
Yes, that will be just part of the conversation we'll be having. Every Saturday, we have Africa Unification conversation. So that part of the teaching will be like a conversation to us seeing how we can actually liberate our teaching system as a part of current and ongoing efforts towards liberating and unifying Africa. Brother Kwame, is there any further information from your side?
No, you've said it all. Just to say thank you to all who came.
Okay. So thank you all and see you again this Thursday and next Saturday. May you have a wonderful evening.
If you can play the anthem before we
yes,
go. We can leave. People can leave as you play. Yeah,
yeah, I'll be playing the anthem.
Good night, all. Thanks.
Good night, Sam.
Yeah, I think there's
good night.
Two riders.
Yeah, good night, Shrine.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
For the line.
Let us all unite and celebrate together the victories won for our liberation. Let us dedicate ourselves to rise together to defend our liberty and unity. All sons and daughters of Africa, flesh of the sun and flesh of the sky, let us make Africa a tree of life. Let us all unite and sing together to uphold the bonds that frame our destiny. Let us dedicate ourselves to fight together for lasting peace and justice on earth. All sons and daughters of Africa, flesh of the sun and flesh of the sky, let us make Africa the tree of life. Let us all unite and join together to give the best we have to Africa, the cradle of mankind and fount of culture, our pride and hope and break of dawn. All sons and daughters of Africa, flesh of the sun and flesh of the sky, let us make Africa the tree of life.
Thank you all. Thank you so much. Thank you for your attendance.
Is there a Swahili version of the anthem?
You want the Swahili version?
If it's there, it would be nice to hear. Thanks.
We'll play it next Saturday, the Swahili version.
Thanks.
Thank you. So see you next Saturday.
Bye.